can outdrive you.
Boy, do we have a very special guest this afternoon in the studio, and that is none other than modified racing legend, named one of the top 50 modified drivers of all time, the winningest driver in the history of Riverside Park Speedway, the second winningest driver on the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, Reggie Ruggiero. Thank you for joining us here this afternoon. You look great, too.
Oh, thank you, Derek. It's a pleasure to be here. Being down south, I don't really get to do anything like this because I don't know anybody, and when you called, it's like, yeah, why not? Let's do it.
It's fun. We're just going to sit back and chill out and talk. But one of the things that surprised me when we chatted was that you're 70 years old, you told me. You still look like you could hop in a car and run a 150-lap race somewhere.
I could. I believe I could. But age gets you. But, you know, I would be in a race car today. I mean, my friend has a vintage race car, and he always wants me to drive it. And my wife says, you did it long enough. Don't do it anymore. Okay. I did.
You ever thought about, like, calling somebody at Bowman Gray one night and saying, hey, let me come up and run one of your cars? I mean, first off, if you showed up, it would be huge. I mean, the crowd around you after the race would be enormous. I mean, never mind the Tim Browns and the Burt Myers and all that, but when they hear Reggie Ruggiero's in the house and he's going to race, I mean, you would be treated like a star for the night.
My ears perked up when they said they were putting Martinsville and Richmond back on the tour this year. It's like, wow, I love those racetracks.
That's where you got your first tour win, right?
Where?
At Martinsville?
No, I don't remember it was. But I've had 4 Martinsville trophy grandfather clocks.
Right, that's what Bonesy was telling me when we talked. Now, going back, actually, let's start from the beginning. Now, Plainville was the track that you started at,
correct?
Right?
Plainville, Connecticut. Yep.
Right in the modifieds.
Yes, they were old coupes back then. Build them yourself in your backyard and go race, and that's where I started.
So it wasn't like, let me start in a street stock and work my way up. It was right into the ground.
Right into the modified. Yep, it was 327 back then was the motor of choice Chevrolet, and a coupe body, and it was a quarter-mile flat racetrack. It was pretty cool.
How did you do in those first couple of years? Was it tough?
I did good. No, I did pretty good. First year, I was scared to death. First race and first couple of, races, and then you get accustomed to it, and I did pretty well.
At what point did everything start to come together and you started to come into your own driving at Plainville, because you had actually drove a couple of races for Don Moon from what I had heard, and then Don was an okay racer, but when you hopped in his car, you just started racking up the wins, I heard.
Yeah, what happened was I had sold my car. I had wrecked it, really, and I sold parts. I sold the car wrecked to somebody, Ronnie Rocco, actually, of Berlin, Connecticut, and then Don Moon broke his arm. And he said, would you drive my car? So, okay. So I drove it for the rest of the season. I guess his arm never got any better. But, well, we won 9 races in a row with the car. It was a Pinto back then. And that's when I got noticed by Mario. Mm-hmm. Mario and Dean Nardi were partners. And he came to Plainville and watched me race Don's car. And made me an offer to go to Riverside Park in 1975.
And he just approached you after the races? You had never met him or anything?
Yeah, I never met him, and I didn't even know who he was.
Okay.
And, he explained who he was, this and that. And the first day I met him, the next day I went up to Massachusetts to see him, and we drove to Richie's in Rome, New York, and he ordered a car.
And that was the purple Chevette, right?
Correct.
That was
correct.
I believe it was New England Uniform was the sponsor on the car?
Yep.
Okay.
Purple with orange frame and wheels, yeah.
So now, for all intents and purposes, you were basically RE Chassis's first customer then, or Mario was, right?
Yep, correct.
Holy cow. So when you hopped into that first RE chassis, what was it like? What did it feel like? Did you know that you were driving something good and solid?
Yeah, it was a really good car. We won our second race out at Riverside. We won the race. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was I raced in 75 the last 3 races, and they had like a end of the year thing where they had a 100 lap, 150 lap, and a 200 lap, mm-hmm. and I won the 150 lap, I think it was. The second race out, I won the race and finished second, I think, in the 200 lap.
Now, was this?
That was a big change for me because Riverside Park was, back then, it wasn't really a quarter mile. It was a little bit smaller. It was banked a little bit. Where I came from a flat racetrack.
Right.
And
Now was going from Plainville to Riverside like looking like a next step up in racing?
correct, yeah.
Oh, okay, it was.
because when we used to get rained out at Plainville, we always used to hop in our car and go to Riverside, watch the races, because Riverside never rained out. They would put Speedy Dry all over the whole racetrack, dry it, and they'd always race.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
And so I guess just sitting there, you would say, what, I want to run here one day?
Yeah. And I had the chance and took the opportunity, and it worked out
And
all those years, huh?
so then Riverside just became your home track. And
Yeah, it went from, I think it was like a fifth of a mile, then it went to the quarter mile, and then they banked it,
okay.
the last configuration of it.
Now racing with all those guys in the purple Chevette and everything, was that with the group that you would call the Italian Mafia? Was that those guys?
Yeah, there was a lot of them, yeah. All the Mordinos and Membrinos and Grecos, and they're all Italian, yeah.
Right, especially up in that area.
Yeah.
Cool. So when did the whole idea then come for you guys to actually start going from racing weekly from at Plainville and Riverside to going to the quote unquote tour? Because looking back through the record books, like the first year of the modified tour, you drove for a couple of different guys. I saw you drove for Mike Richie a few times and Mario here and there. Like the first 2 years were sporadic. And then the third year in 87 was like the blow up year for you, is when you went full time with Mario. What was it? At what point did you say, all right, now we're going to chase this series?
Yeah, we started at Riverside and ran there weekly. Mm-hmm. And then I think probably about 1980 or so, Mario decided to race like Stafford on Friday nights and Riverside on Saturday. And then it turned into Stafford on Friday, Riverside on Saturday, and Thompson on Sunday. And that was for years. And then in 87 was the first year, was it 87, 84? I think 84 the tour started.
Okay.
And that's when we started on a tour, but we did run weekly when we could.
And that was with the Danny's Market car, right?
Correct.
The black 44.
Well, they were different colors.
Okay.
There was a Magnum 44, Danny's Market, the Miller car.
Oh, I remember a bunch. Yeah, I remember
there was
all
a bunch
those
of
cars.
them.
The Teddy Bear Pools car. Yeah.
Golf car.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I remember that car. It was iconic too.
Yeah.
But technically, though, 1987 in a way was your breakout season. Really, I mean, you had 8 wins on the tour. You were second in points. You were the winningest driver that season, and then you had also had a shot in a Busch car a couple of times too, right?
Yep.
How like 1987 had to have been big for you.
Yeah, actually, the Busch car came earlier than that. Busch car was 83.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I drove it at Dover, Darlington, and Martinsville. Mm-hmm. And they wanted me to drive it full time.
Right.
It was the number 90 Cox lumber car.
Yeah, I saw a picture of it.
And I had a gas station at the time, and I had young kids, and I was driving 3-4 nights a week. And they wanted to pay me, to work on a car, and they didn't pay a lot of money back then. Down here, the Busch cars, and they were actually the V6 Buicks back then.
Right.
And I said, "Nah, I'm satisfied doing the modified stuff." And Rusty Wallace took the ride.
It's so funny because you just explained the whole question that I was going to have for you, though. Like you had an offer to drive for a Busch team. I mean, it's an opportunity that a lot of kids and adults would never turn down nowadays. I mean, did anybody think that you were crazy for not doing it?
Yeah, I mean, another time a Busch car a ride came available when Mike McLaughlin got out of the not Mike Cece, but Frank Cece's car, and Frank Cece called me up. Says, "Would you like to drive the car?" Moved down south to drive the car. He was from New York, but and
he owned modifieds too, didn't he? Okay.
And I says, well, "Let me talk it over for the weekend, and I'll give you a call back." Right. So when I called him back on Monday, he says, well, "I'm sorry, but Jimmy Spencer took the ride."
Just that quick.
Yeah.
It was the fact that you didn't get back to him quick enough, or you wanted an answer right away?
I guess.
It's just the way the NASCAR world was, right?
Yeah, that's how it works.
Do you ever wish you had done it, or do you look back and go, "Nah, I'm pleased with what I did"?
No, I wish I did it because I know I could have been successful in it, and it just, I don't judge myself that I did what I did because I was very happy. I lot of 40-something years of racing, and I did very well for myself. So I'm happy, but it probably could have been better.
And this was also back in the day where, you were making money as a modified driver, racing 3 times a week, too.
Correct.
I mean, it wasn't like it is now where there's a lot of money going in and less coming out.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. Stafford Springs, 1987, I won the Spring Sizzler. And we took home a check for like $13,000 or $14,000 and won it again in 90. And that was 80 laps. Okay. Then in 1990, it went to 200 laps, Spring Sizzler.
Okay.
And we took home a check for like $8,000. And I won it in 93, 200 laps, took home a check for like $6,000. So there's something wrong with that picture.
Yeah. The inflation numbers aren't working.
No.
But the 80s were definitely a good time for a modified driver like yourself,
Correct.
weren't they? I mean, you were running the Stafford, Thompson, and
Riverside
weekly.
One race car.
Oh my God! And you'd run the whole season, right? It wasn't like you'd have to pull the motor out after 5 or 6 races and go.
No, we'd run. Motor would get rebuilt once in a while, but not very often.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Yeah. And that was with that car behind you, right?
Correct. One of them cars, yeah.
Yeah. If you're listening on the podcast too, there's a beautiful Mike Adaskevich photo of Richie in that iconic Miller High Life car. I mean, that was quite possibly one of the prettiest cars that was there. How did that whole deal come together with getting Miller?
We had gone to a car show one time, and Roger Penske was there. And Mario, being Mario, went over and asked him, what would it take to get a sponsor, like Miller, this and that. And Roger hooked us up with people from Miller. I guess he was pretty big into the Miller part of it, and it came about. It wasn't a big deal, but it was pretty good.
Was it easier to get sponsors back then? Because the stories that I had heard over the years was in the shop every day, Mario was always on the phone. He always had the phone to his ear. So was it easy, or was it harder than it is now?
It was easier. Nowadays, when somebody calls a sponsor, I need $300,000, $400,000 for a modified. I mean, it's expensive. And back then, if you got $20,000, that was pretty good.
Right.
So it was a lot easier.
Wow, it's crazy. And from what I had heard too, like a lot of the stuff that Mario went racing with, he was on the deal too. We had
shocks and clutches and tires and gas and everything.
Yeah, I see the M&H tires on there. They don't make those anymore. And the funny thing is I remember Marvin Rifkin because he hung out a lot with the midgets over the years, and super nice guy. So it was so neat to see like the M&H on a modified back in the day, because one of the last places we saw them was midget racing. So, but of all those tracks that you ran with over the years, I mean, you ran with all the legends in the sport. Obviously, after Jerry Cook had retired, or he moved on to work for NASCAR, for all intents and purposes, you became Richie's toughest competition, weren't you?
Yeah, we were friends, but we weren't friends. I remember one time at
he wasn't sharing nothing with you?
Seekonk Speedway. It was a tour race, and I don't know what happened, but I ended up on top of him, the cars, on top of him in a wreck. It was a wreck, and he got really PO'd at me, and we had words, but it all went away, But that's how Richie was. He had to go win every race, and you can't win every race.
Right. Did you catch a lot of booze for that one?
No, it was all right.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, what was? I know you spent a lot of time racing with him on the track, but what was Richie like as a person?
He was a great person. He was fun to be with. He told it like it was. He wouldn't hide anything from you. If he says you screwed up, you screwed up, and that's how it was. And when you went to the racetrack, myself, if I wasn't out there practicing, who's the guy you were timing? Richie, because he's the guy you had to beat.
Right. I gotcha. Being that you guys both ran the same cars, though, was there ever any time where you would share data, or
he would come and help us because we were a new team. I mean, we were young, and he was older, and he would come and help us out. He wouldn't tell you everything, but he would help you out.
What I mean, obviously you were at Martinsville the day he had died.
Correct. Actually, I was on pit wall on the backstretch, timing him, and I watched him come by me, and he just went straight in the fence. He never put the brakes on, turned the wheel. He never did nothing.
So you saw everything.
Oh yeah, I was on the backstretch, timing him.
Wow.
Like I said, if you weren't out there, you were watching him.
So did you know right away, or
no?
But you knew.
I ran down there. Everybody ran down to the corner, 3 and 4, and he was just humped over in the seat. Saw you know, but nobody knew anything till later on. But
was it almost like that Dale Earnhardt vibe after he had passed? Like, you know, what do we do now?
No, racing goes on. But everybody blamed it on the boosters in the carburetor, that it fell down and jammed the carburetors and that. To myself, I don't know what he died from or whatever, but he never even tried to stop or turn the wheel or anything. So I believe he was unconscious when he ended at the end of the straightaway before he hit the wall.
There have been many stories like that over the years. There's some say that he was out before he hit, and that's why he hit, because he was out. There's some say the struck throttle. There are some reports that it was the basal skull fracture that he passed away from. I guess it's one of those mysteries that we'll just
never find out.
We'll never know. No. Whatever happened to the car? Did they ever? I heard they had buried the car.
Did they? I have never heard. No.
I don't know. Switching gears, let's get back to Riverside Park. I mean, Riverside was an awesome place to race. I ran there before in a Pro 4 modified, in a midget, in a TQ, over the years driving for my dad, so I knew how special the place was. You get out of the place after the night of racing, you go up into the amusement
beer
park.
Garden, yeah.
Beer garden. It was the perfect place for kids and families to go, which is another reason why I'll never go back to a Six Flags amusement park. I'll totally boycott that. But I watched a video the other night. It was funny. It was a match race between you and Shauna Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
Running at Riverside in a match race with modifieds. She was in a red 59 car, and you were in your car. And she had won the race by a little bit, but come on, tell the truth. You let her win, didn't you? Yeah. I thought so. Because she's sitting there rolling the outside, and I'm like, there's no way. I'm like,
it was a NASCAR promotion,
Okay. You let her win, didn't you? I thought that was great. All right. So basically, though, on the tour, when you ran at Riverside, though, you had run for a couple of different guys. You had driven for, Mike Ricci, Bob Judkins,
Bill Pelly,
and Mario. Okay. Did it? How much of a heartbreaker was it to see Riverside go?
It was. That was like the ultimate racetrack for a Saturday night, like you said, because it was fun for everybody. And my kids grew up with me going to Riverside every week, and from when they were little kids till 2-3 years old, take them to the racetrack. And as they got older, we have to go to Riverside again. People would die to go to Riverside Park, but they've been there so much, they don't want to go anymore.
I loved Riverside. I was so heartbroken when they heard they torn the place down. But was there any piece of the track you were able to take with you? Do you have any memorabilia?
No, nothing.
Nothing. That's unfortunate. I got a piece of Concord Speedway actually over in the corner before they tore it down, because I announced there for years when I had moved down here. But so those years at Riverside, you drove for those different car owners, but Mario's shop was, from what I heard, right across the street.
Directly across the street.
So it wasn't really far to tow, or if you needed to go back to the shop.
You could drive the car across the street. I mean, literally a driveway to driveway right across the street.
God. And the other thing, too, that I don't think that you get credit for from talking with other people was how good a mechanic you are. Like, just besides being able to drive the car, get it to victory lane, and win championships, but I don't think that you were given enough credit for how great of a mechanic you were on that car, were you?
Yeah, we worked on the car all the time. I mean, I would go work during the day. I had a gas station back then, way back when, and get out of work and drive up to Massachusetts, work on a car, get home, go back to work next morning. You had to. I mean, it's the way it was.
And that
nothing of it. Huh?
Monday through Friday? So you're losing an hour each way driving every day. And then however many hours you're in the shop working with Mario on the car.
Yeah.
So, oh my.
It was dedication, but it was, back then it was fun. Racing nowadays is not fun. It's too political, huh?
How so?
Too many rules, too many regulations. NASCAR not to knock NASCAR, but they got in with all their fancy rules and stuff, and people can't. They just killed the sport. People can't afford it anymore.
What's your opinion on like the current issues that are going on, like the spec motor in the last couple of years? Like the spec motor has come into play where the built motors are not. I mean, does it save you money? It saves you a few dollars, not a lot, because the regular built motors were getting to be $50,000 a piece, and I guess the spec motor is like 34 or 37,000 or something like that. Okay.
Did it save you money? Yeah, but NASCAR went about it the wrong way. They implemented the spec motor in with the built motors, but then they put the spec motor with any carburetor you want, and the built motor with a 390. So there's no way they could be competitive.
Right. That's what I had always heard.
You know?
You're at a disadvantage with the built motor.
Built motor, yeah.
Right. It's just because of that carburetor?
Yep.
That's it.
Well, the weight too. The spec motor is aluminum.
What do you think Mario would have thought about that whole spec motor thing?
I don't think he would have liked it because we actually have motor sponsors. So.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's right. That even brings me to John Betts. I mean,
that's John Betts is in Salisbury. He's my best friend. He's Salisbury. Right. Yeah.
Well, really, you helped put that company on the map, right? I mean, because you were one of the few guys on the tour that was running a McBetts racing engine. Everyone was either was it Motor Shop, Hutter, Tony's, like they were all. But you
Performance Technology, all the other ones.
Yeah, but you were basically the guy that put McBetts on the map.
Right.
So, and John's still friends with you to this day?
He still builds motors. And he has a shop in Salisbury, yeah.
That's great. And then
I have breakfast with him every Saturday morning.
That's so funny. John knows me. He sees me every once in a while. Yeah, he's told me to come on over and come hang out or something. I'm over near Salisbury too. But what prompted Mario to go with John Betts?
A deal.
Mario on the phone again?
Yep. A deal. We had a deal with them. We had a deal with Motor Shop. I think this car here has a Motor Shop motor in it. Mm-hmm. On the hood, it says. Right. And it was all money. That's all it was.
Okay. So, and that's something that Mario put together.
Yep.
Now, okay, I had chatted with Mario a little bit when we were doing the NASCAR Hall of Fame biography, and I got to talk with him a few times and got to know him over the phone. But did just chatting with him over the years and hearing the stories, did Mario have a flair for being dramatic?
No, not really.
No.
He was actually quiet.
Was he really?
Yeah. Okay, unless he really got mad, then he wouldn't. He was Italian, All
right. Well, switching gears, what are you doing now? Because it's been 2007. You ran your last modified race on the tour, right?
I think it was 2009.
2009. Okay, my bad. So
could have been 7.
So we're talking well over 10 years since you've been. To a modified race, or I should say, in a modified race. What have you been doing in that time? I know you moved down here, but
I moved down here, and now in my spare time, I hunt a lot, and I help John out. He has 3 vintage cars. Mm-hmm. We just built a new one last year for him over the winter, and just keep busy.
Do you go hunting with Zippy at all, or
no?
Okay,
he's a upper class,
right. But
they fly to where they hunt and this and that. I hunt local.
What do you hunt for?
Deer, turkey. Yeah.
Okay, but getting back to the racing stuff. Okay, you drove for Mario for a bunch of years, and my God, I mean, you ran with everybody from the Truex to Evernham to Jimmy Spencer
we raced everybody.
How was your rivalry with Jimmy Spencer? Because I had seen that you guys had a bunch of run-ins on the track. I mean, even during New Smyrna, you guys.
New Smyrna, we had a big run-in.
I know. I saw a video of it the other night. What was the rivalry like with Jimmy? Because you guys both looked like you were 2 aggressive drivers.
Correct. And I remember one race at Jennerstown before we'll get to New Smyrna. Mm-hmm. And I passed Jimmy on the last lap of the last corner. Coming out of 4, I bumped him and drove underneath him for the win. Mm-hmm. His family wanted to kill me after the race. Spencer Group, huh?
From a little contact?
Yeah, because I beat him. I won the race, huh?
Was it a bump and run, or did you just
a little bump and run? I mean, it wasn't not a big deal. He finished second, but
okay, yeah, you didn't take him out.
No.
All right,
but yeah. And in Smyrna, we were racing, and I was passing him and he put me out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I drove into the pits. I mean, the car was not wrecked that bad. It was okay, but drove right to his trailer, got out of the car, went right in the trailer. Now, Jimmy's like 6'5". I'm like 5'5", you know, and it's like, I didn't care. I was so mad at him. We had words, but everything cooled out after that.
It just seems like it's something like that is like a clash of the titans, because you've got, you know, you with all of your success, and then of course Jimmy, he had won 2 championships at the time too, and like I could see like definitely guys like you and Tom Baldwin, you know, button heads, because again, Baldwin, another aggressive driver. What was the rivalry like with him?
Baldwin was cool. He was the greatest thing to himself, and you know, he let's put it this way: he was competitive, but he wasn't with the upper people. You know what I mean? He'd get his win once in a while, but he didn't run consistent every week.
Okay. I mean, all of my years of watching him on Long Island, because I come from the whole Islip Riverhead crowd, you know, he was right there with racing with the guys at Islip and Riverhead. But I mean, I remember you guys and Mario was, I remember, vocal about Tommy going, oh, he'll just dump you. You know, I remember him saying that even in an interview.
Yeah.
And he did actually on national television, didn't he? You guys were running at Stafford. It was a TV race.
Oh, it could have been. I don't remember. Yeah.
And it was the Tommy just come in and he turned you around, and it was so funny because the story that I heard that Bones was telling me is that the next week Tony Stewart got into him, or a couple of months later, Tony Stewart got into him down in New Smyrna, and he went complaining to Tony Stewart that you got into me, and he's like, I learned everything from you. I watched you knock Reggie up into the wall a couple of weeks ago. So, oh God.
The best bump and run I had, the best wreck of a famous driver was Jeff Bodine at Riverside Park.
Oh, really?
He was in the Armstrong #1 car, red car.
Mm-hmm.
And we were racing, I don't know how long, 100-lap race, whatever it was, and I put him out and won the race. Put him in the fence, yeah. He's like, he didn't appreciate that.
Was he mad
much.
after that
Yeah.
one? Now, at what point did you say, I'm going to start building race cars? Like you
I
had
always
the gas
built
station.
all my own race cars, right from the beginning. And like Mario's car, if it got wrecked, I would fix it. I would put a clip on it. Well, whatever it needed to do, we would do it in the shop. It never went to a chassis shop or whatever. You know, we did it ourselves.
Did you guys have a jig?
No.
What'd you do? Put it on the floor?
Yeah, we had 2 I-beams or whatever and fix it. Yeah.
Wow, no kidding. Okay, and what did you just have to buy another clip, or did you have to create?
If it needed a clip, we bought one. If not, we'd fix it, cut it parts, and cut it to pieces and put parts in or whatever.
You know, the funny thing too about all of this is that you have been in this sport from the time of the coupes to what we know as the modern era. That time in the 80s seems like so much fun, where everybody was racing multiple nights a week, down in New Smyrna at the beginning of the year. But you have to tell me the story of the Shark Lounge, and how did Mario put that whole thing together, and what came about from that?
Val Lasur, the owner of the newspaper, he used to call the Shark Lounge his office.
Right. And for those people listening in on the podcast, the Shark Lounge was a strip club in Daytona Beach.
So after the race, if we won a race, even if we didn't win a race, we'd all go to the Shark Lounge. I mean, with your wives and everything else. It didn't make any difference.
The wives, too?
Yeah, sure. And it was quite the place. Anyways, we used to go there all the time. And then after a couple of years, the guy says, well, what do you guys race? So we'll sponsor you. So he ended up sponsoring Mario's car for the 9 races at New Smyrna every February.
And the pictures that I saw over the years were quite something. Between having the dancers doing photo shoots out in front of the in front of the club, and then
they did it on Daytona Beach one time, and it was fun.
it was just a different time back then.
Different era.
I mean,
correct.
nobody was.
It was fun. Like I said, it was fun. Mm-hmm. Now,
do you think it's more of the corporate end of it that has done that?
Correct. I mean, everybody, like I say, wants to be politically correct, and it takes the fun away.
And what, I was just gonna say, it takes because nowadays there's no way you'd be able to roll that Magnum Engine Oil's car out onto the beach and get a couple of bikini girls with him on the car. I mean, how did that whole thing come about with getting the modified on the beach? Because that's another iconic photo.
That's a beautiful picture. It just that's a Mario. He wanted to have that picture of the car on the beach, and it took some doing to do it because they didn't want the car out on. Actually, the car is in the water a little bit if you see the pictures of it, and he had to talk to a lot of people to get it done.
It's fun times.
Yeah.
Which of all the modifieds you drove though, which one was the car that you had the most fun in, or you enjoyed driving the most?
Oh boy, that's a hard decision. They were all good. Probably I mean, I drove for Mario, and we had a lot of success with all his cars. But Ed Close, the number 69 car from Potsdam, New York, he had really nice equipment.
Okay.
And he had money. You know what I mean? He owned a Toyota dealership and a Honda dealership, and I did very well with his cars. We won 5 races in a row at New Hampshire Speedway in the 90s with that car.
Wow.
And they used to pay like $20,000 a race to win. That was big money for modified.
That was one of your chassis too, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, how did the whole deal come to driving for Ed Close? Because I know that there were times where you drive for Mario, went somewhere else, drove for Mario, went somewhere else. How did it come to you driving for Ed in that number 69 car? Because that's another iconic car. I mean, it was the Hemi Cuda.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were racing Mario's for the season. I don't forget what year it was, but Mario, I guess, ran out of money, couldn't race the last couple of races, so I drove Ed's car at Martinsville. And actually, Brian Ross was driving for Ed Close at the time, but Ed wanted me to drive his backup car, which was a number 6 car, instead of a 69. And I drove it to Martinsville, and we did well with it. And that's when the next year, Mario didn't give me any say of what he was going to do, so I took the ride in that Closest car.
And from what I heard too, when you guys had teamed up, it was like it was just like very business. It was all business. So, you know, you guys got to the track. It was, get the car prepped, have it pristine, go out, kick ass, go home, and then get on to the next race.
That was his philosophy. Just, you're there to race, none of this partying and all this stuff. Super nice guy, super nice family. And
now I have to ask you about I think it's 87 or 88 Race Champions. The year you won it.
87.
Okay. They started 52 cars in the field that day. You started 51st. A number that is unheard of nowadays. You'll never see 50-something.
It was only a 3/4 mile racetrack, too.
And you'll never see 50-something cars start a race today.
No.
How the hell did you come from 51st to win the race?
It's a lot of hard driving. We had a really good race car, but we had problems in qualifying with the motor. Something happened. We had to take a provisional to get into the race. And
that's when you had to run heat races, right, to get into the show?
Correct. And we ended up, like it says, I think I had won a race during the course of the year, which was a Pocono qualifier, they called it. So that's how we got into the race. It was guaranteed starter,
right?
Okay. And started basically last, and won the race.
Now, was the whole race spent playing catch up, or was it one of those things where, like you said, you had motor problems and issues all day long, and then everything finally worked when the main event time came?
Yeah, everything worked good. I mean, we ran, it took a while. I shouldn't say it took a while. I don't remember, but we got up to the front pretty fast, with the good guys. And coming down to the end of the race, I remember it was Mike Stefanik was leading the race. I was second, was catching him, and we had a caution. And under the caution, his left rear tire went flat, sitting there. It was a red flag.
Oh, okay. So he must have run over something? Or?
Yeah. And he had a pit, and I inherited the lead and won the race.
So what were they telling you on the radio? Just hang on for 8 laps, or just do what you've been doing for 8 laps?
Yeah.
And
actually, I was pressured by Satch Worley. He was driving a number 4 car, a Mystic Missile car, and he finished second. Yeah.
Okay. I knew the story that you had started 51st, and then when someone told me 51st, 51 cars in the field, well, actually 52 cars, but I couldn't imagine what it must have been like.
I mean, back in the 80s, Thompson 300. You remember that race? It was a
Yep.
prestigious race. I remember going there and there was 200 modifieds trying to qualify for 40 spots, 50 spots.
Wow.
200.
You know, the funny thing is, too, is nowadays, if you start 50 cars in a race, it take you hours to finish the race. I mean, you know, we saw that a couple of weeks ago down in New Smyrna. They started 40 cars, I think, in the race, and I mean, they wrecked some serious equipment. There were guys that were done after their first or second night down there.
Yeah.
So, what is between the driving though, between the guys nowadays that you see racing and the guys from back then? What are some of the big things that you notice between the driving styles?
The drivers nowadays, I always said there's race car drivers and there's wannabe race car drivers. Okay, and it seems like nowadays, if your daddy has a lot of money, you're a race car driver.
All right.
A wannabe race car driver. Put it that way. And back then it wasn't like that, because back in the older times, because you had to want to race. Because if you didn't produce, you didn't make no money, you couldn't drive anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
The guy don't want you. If you can't win a race, they don't want you anymore. But nowadays, if you keep bringing money to the table, you can drive anything you want.
You can run forever.
I mean, if you had $5 million, you could drive Cup cars Daytona this week.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. It's not about the talent anymore. Well, you know, I've said for the longest time, the attitude of it has changed, because back then you could become rich and famous, you know, being a race car driver with your talent. Now you got to be rich and famous just to get in the or rich just to get in the seat. So it's been it's huge, but. Before we go, we got to wrap it up soon, and there's so many more questions I want to ask you, and we're definitely going to have you back.
I got a good story for you before we leave.
Let's go. Let's hear it. I want to hear it. Okay, I want to hear it.
I drove for this fella. What was it called? It was like a Busch car, but it was from Maine. I forget the name of the series. Anyways, we drove it. He called me up, wanted to race Dover. And we were racing Pocono at that same weekend, the Pocono at the 3/4 mile. So NASCAR flew myself and Kenny Bouchard to Dover to race Saturday afternoon after we had qualified at Pocono to race the Busch car. So I go to the Busch race, and I go out and practice, and Ronnie Bouchard was racing the Cup car at the time. He says, "Boy, you're going pretty good, but what's the matter?" I says, "I get into the corner, and the back end wants to come around." He says, "Take your foot off the brake." Oh, okay. I was never on a big racetrack like that, the Dover mile racetrack, right? So anyways, we start the race. We had a team car. Dale Shaw drove one, and I drove the other car. They were V6 Buicks back then.
Okay.
And I think I qualified second or third. And we get going. I'm running second. Ran about 40 laps, and the motor blows up. I come down pit road, and he says, "What happened?" I says, "The oil light came on, the motor stopped, you know, something happened." He says, "Well, get out, but don't get changed." He says, "Because Dale doesn't feel good." All right. So he ran around till the next caution. He came in. I got in the car, didn't lose a lap, went back out, right? And I'm going good, started last. I got up to second. Boom, the motor blows up.
Oh, no.
So I coast down pit road. He says, "What's the matter?" I says, "Motor blew up." I says, "When I got in the car, there was all this oil on the inside of the car and stuff." He said, "Oh, that wasn't oil. Dale threw up." Oh boy.
Thank God you were racing, because the stench was probably awful. I mean,
that's a good story.
That is a great story. But Reg, thank you so much for joining us here today. We had such a great time. I tell you what, you know, one final question. If somebody had called you and said, "Hey, I want you to come run my car this weekend. We're going to run a race at Caraway," or run, would you do it? Would you hop in?
No.
No?
No.
Not
done. I finished. I sold everything. I actually sold my helmet. I sold my Hans device. My wife took my last fire suit, and it's framed in the garage in a glass case, and it's done.
Well, you know,
I mean, I would love to, but it's not going to happen.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind you could absolutely still do it, and more than likely kick a lot of the guys' asses that are still out there today.
I told you, Martinsville and Richmond, sparked me a little bit.
Well,
I love
you'll-
those tracks. Huh?
Hopefully, you'll get back to Martinsville and maybe see some familiar faces. But
Yeah, I went to, before we go, I went to Bowman Gray about 2 years ago with my friend. Never was there before. Very unique.
oh yeah, I know, and that's what I was
For a
saying.
modified track.
Well, with your driving style coming from the park and stuff, like Bowman Gray would definitely suit you.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, you would
Bump and run, yep.
exactly. So, but Reg, thank you. I mean, we haven't really even scratched the surface of stuff. I wanted to talk to you about Mike Stefanik. I wanted to talk to you about Eddie Flemke, Raceworks chassis. We got to have you back again.
Oh, no problem.
Excellent. Thank you.
I mean,
very
there's
much.
a lot of things that we haven't gone over, like you said.
Awesome. Well, let's get together again and talk about it. That's Reggie Ruggiero joining us here on the show. What an incredible guest we've had, Reg. Again, thank you very much, and we'll see you for the next time around.